Okay, we are at the start of Second Chronicles. Last time we left off with Second Chronicles chapter 2, um, or 3. We're continuing from chapter 3, but we read through 1 and 2, and pretty much talking about how David prepared everything for Solomon. He gathered all the materials to build the temple. That's one of the first major actions that Solomon takes. He constructs the temple and dedicates it to God, and it's a incredible speech that he makes, and he has one of the best lines in the entire Bible, really, talking about how if we would call out in one voice and recognize our sin and return to God, he's faithful and just to. I'm paraphrasing, it's my I could be wrong on my interpretation of the speech. His speech is far superior, right? It's a pretty famous line. I don't remember the exact where it's at here, but we are coming to it fairly soon. But it's that's where we're at. We're in the middle of, we're getting the temple prepared. Things are being built. Solomon is seeking God. He's praying for wisdom from God. God is blessing Solomon not only with wisdom, but with material blessings as well. And so this is the golden age. This is much more uplifting than what we were talking about right at the end of Second Kings. It's a little more negative. But that is a reality that as we're blessed, we have a tendency to forget who gave us that blessing. And that's certainly what happened with them. That's what's happening right now with us. And so you can draw similarities from it, but obviously this is the Lord's people. These are the Israelites, the Jews. And I think there's a little different standard there. But we can see some similarities. If you ever ask the question of why things are the way they are, I think you can reflect back on the Bible and see, hey, things are the same way right here. Maybe there's something to that. I mean, that's how I think of it anyway. But maybe I'm wrong. But so we're going to continue from chapter 3. We're going to start in prayer, though, we're going to read the Our Father here in Matthew chapter 6, verse 9. After this manner, therefore, pray ye, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen. Amen. All right. We're continuing from chapter 3 of Second Chronicles. Some of it's a little dry. We've got some building dimensions and that kind of thing, but nonetheless important because you see all these dimensions repeated, especially a lot of the articles used in the temple. I think that's all described back in Moses' books, in the first 5 books, and then you see that repeated. Ezekiel, I think, talks about those articles, and then, of course, Revelation talks about those things, and I think it all symbolizes a lot of things, but I don't I don't want to go into that yet. I think somebody better could talk about that. Why don't we just read it and I'll shut my mouth. Chapter 3. Solomon begins to build the temple. Verse 1. Then Solomon began to build the house of the Lord at Jerusalem in Mount Moriah, where the Lord appeared unto David his father, in the place that David had prepared in the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. And he began to build in the 2nd day of the 2nd month in the 4th year of his reign. Dimensions and materials of the temple. See, this is very dry material here, but like I said, you see this repeated in other books, so there must be a point to it, you know. And of course, end times prophecy, that's talking about a 3rd temple being constructed. So this is all important to that stuff. So we should be paying attention, even though it's a little dry. I think there's a lot of symbolism there. Maybe if you're one of those numerology experts on biblical numerology, there's probably all kinds of information here that I'm not even aware of. I really should do more work looking at all that. But it's here, so we're going to read it. Verse 3. Now these are the things wherein Solomon was instructed for the building of the house of God. The length by cubits after the first measure was 60 cubits, and the breadth 20 cubits. And the porch that was in the front of the house, the length of it was according to the breadth of the house 20 cubits, and the height was 120. And he overlaid it within with pure gold. And the greater house he sealed with fir tree, which he overlaid with fine gold, and set thereon palm trees and chains. And he garnished the house with precious stones for beauty, and the gold was gold of Parvaim. He overlaid also the house, the beams, the posts, and the walls thereof, and the doors thereof, with gold, and graved cherubims on the walls. And he made the most holy house, the length whereof was according to the breadth of the house 20 cubits, and the breadth thereof 20 cubits. And he overlaid it with fine gold, amounting to 600 talents. It's a lot of gold. And the weight of the nails was 50 shekels of gold, and he overlaid the upper chambers with gold. And in the most holy house he made 2 cherubims of image work, and overlaid them with gold. And the wings of the cherubims were 20 cubits long. One wing of the one cherub was 5 cubits, reaching to the wall of the house, and the other wing was likewise 5 cubits, reaching to the wing of the other cherub. So is reaching to the wing of the other cherub, that's how the ark, the mercy seat as they call it, it's actually his throne also. And the wings attaching themselves, that's like the back of the chair, basically, At least that's what I've heard anyway. I'm not an expert on this, but it's interesting. 12. And one wing of the other cherub was 5 cubits, reaching to the wall of the house, and the other wing was 5 cubits also, joining to the wing of the other cherub. The wings of these cherubims spread themselves forth 20 cubits, and they stood on their feet, and their faces were inward. And he made the veil of blue and purple and crimson and fine linen, and wrought cherubims thereon. Also he made before the house 2 pillars of 30 and 5 cubits high, and the chapiter that was on the top of each of them was 5 cubits. And he made chains, as in the oracle, and put them on the heads of the pillars, and made 100 pomegranates, and put them on the chains. And he reared up the pillars before the temple, one on the right hand and the other on the left, and called the name of that on the right hand Jachin, and the name of that on the left Boaz. I don't know who Jachin is, I apologize, but Boaz, obviously, is the husband of Ruth. which that comes through the line of David, right? So maybe Jachin is the other family name. I don't know. Chapter 4, the temple continued. Verse 1. Moreover, he made an altar of brass, 20 cubits, that the length thereof, and 20 cubits the breadth thereof, and 10 cubits the height thereof. Also he made a molten sea of 10 cubits from brim to brim, round and compass, and 5 cubits the height thereof, and a line of 30 cubits did compass it round about. And under it was the similitude of oxen, which did compass it round about 10 and a cubit, compassing the sea round about. 2 rows of oxen were cast when it was cast. It stood upon 12 oxen, 3 looking toward the north, and 3 looking toward the west, and 3 looking toward the south, and 3 looking toward the east. And the sea was set above upon them, and all their hinder parts were inward. Inward. Obviously 12 tribes. And then the sea. It's interesting. 5. And the thickness of it was an handbreadth, and the brim of it like the work of the brim of a cup, with flowers of lilies, and it received and held 3,000 baths. He made also 10 lavers, and put 5 on the right hand and 5 on the left, to wash in them. Such things as they offered for the burnt offering they washed in them, but the sea was for the priests to wash in. And he made 10 candlesticks of gold according to their form, and set them in the temple, 5 on the right hand and 5 on the left. He made also 10 tables, and placed them in the temple, 5 on the right hand and 5 on the left. And he made 100 basins of gold. Sorry. Furthermore, he made the court of the priests and the great court, and doors for the court, and overlaid the doors of them with brass. And he set the sea on the right side of the east end, over against the south. And Huram made the pots, and the shovels, and the basins. And Huram finished the work that he was to make for King Solomon for the house of God. To wit, the 2 pillars, and the pommels, and the chapiters which were on the top of the 2 pillars, and the 2 wreaths to cover the 2 pommels of the chapiters which were on the top of the pillars, and 400 pomegranates on the 2 wreaths, 2 rows of pomegranates on each wreath, to cover the 2 pommels of the chapiters which were upon the pillars. He made also bases, and lavers made he upon the bases. 1 sea, and 12 oxen under it. The pots also, and the shovels, and the flesh hooks, and all their instruments did Huram his father make to King Solomon for the house of the Lord of bright brass. In the plain of Jordan did the king cast them in the clay ground between Succoth and Zeradathah. Thus Solomon made all these vessels in great abundance, for the weight of the brass could not be found out. And Solomon made all the vessels that were for the house of God, the gold altar also, and the tables whereon the showbread was set. Moreover, the candlesticks with their lamps, that they should burn after the manner before the oracle of pure gold. And the flowers, and the lamps, and the tongs made he of gold, and that perfect gold. How does it say it like that? Perfect gold. Made he of gold, and that perfect gold. See? You catch things like that. 22. And the snuffers, and the basins, and the spoons, and the censers of pure gold, and the entry of the house, the inner doors thereof for the most holy place, and the doors of the house of the temple were of gold. Chapter 5. This is interesting. The ark brought in, the glory fills the house. Verse 1. Thus all the work that Solomon made for the house of the Lord was finished. And Solomon brought in all the things that David his father had dedicated, and the silver and the gold, and all the instruments, put he among the treasures of the house of God. Then Solomon assembled the elders of Israel, and all the heads of the tribes, the chief of the fathers of the children of Israel, unto Jerusalem, to bring up the ark of the covenant of the Lord out of the city of David, which is Zion. Wherefore all the men of Israel assembled themselves unto the king in the feast which was in the 7th month. And all the elders of Israel came, and the Levites took up the ark. See, they're very specific there. They didn't make that mistake again, right? David figured out that one, and he made sure to relay that to Solomon, I think. 5. And they brought up the ark, and the tabernacle of the congregation, and all the holy vessels that were in the tabernacle. These did the priests and the Levites bring up. Also King Solomon, and all the congregation of Israel that were assembled unto him before the ark, sacrificed sheep and oxen, which could not be told nor numbered for multitude. And the priests brought in the ark of the covenant of the Lord unto his place, to the oracle of the house, into the most holy place, even under the wings of the cherubims. For the cherubims spread forth their wings over the place of the ark, and the cherubims covered the ark and the staves thereof above. And they drew out the staves of the ark, that the ends of the staves were seen from the ark before the oracle, but they were not seen without. And there it is unto this day. There was nothing in the ark save the 2 tables which Moses put therein at Horeb, when the Lord made a covenant with the children of Israel, when they came out of Egypt. And it came to pass, when the priests were come out of the holy place, for all the priests that were present were sanctified, and did not then wait by course. Also the Levites, which were the singers, all of them of Asaph, of Heman, of Jeduthun, with their sons and their brethren, being arrayed in white linen, having cymbals and psalteries and harps, stood at the east end of the altar, and with them 120 priests sounding with trumpets. It came even to pass, as the trumpeters and singers were as one, to make one sound to be heard in praising and thanking the Lord. And when they lifted up their voice with the trumpets and cymbals and instruments of music, and praised the Lord, saying, For he is good, for his mercy endureth forever. That then the house was filled with a cloud, even the house of the Lord, so that the priests could not stand to minister by reason of the cloud, for the glory of the Lord had filled the house of God. You know, I was thinking just now, I was thinking about sensations that you get when you enter a place. You know, I was actually having more of a negative thought. This is a far more positive thought, right? About the glory filling the house, the temple, and it's pretty mysterious. But that line, for he is good, for his mercy endureth forever, there's a psalm where that's repeated quite a few times. I forget which psalm. Shows how much I know. But it emphasizes he is good, his mercy endureth forever. Grace and mercy. How many opportunities does he give us to do the right thing? You know, do what he wants us to do. I had an opportunity the other day and I missed it. You know, I thought about doing something good for somebody and I had negative thoughts come on me, and so what I was supposed to do was suppressed, and it didn't happen. It was too bad. Because I had the right thought, then after that, and I lost it, you know. It's probably Satan attacking me, you know, trying to suppress what's supposed to happen here, you know. And so it gets delayed for another day. And then God gives me another opportunity to do what I'm supposed to do today. Do I succeed in what he wants me to do, or do I fail again because of Satan attacking me? For he is good. His mercy endureth forever. It's true. A lot of people hate God right now, or look for reasons, excuses not to accept what he's done, what he's made perfectly, and blame him for how bad it is now. The reason why it is so bad now, because he made it perfectly, okay? He gave you the opportunity, but you took that opportunity and you screwed it up, I'm not pointing my finger at you, I'm pointing the finger at myself. I've screwed it up so many times. But that line, for he is good, his mercy endureth forever, he's still standing there holding his hand out to me, and to you. And we can learn from our mistakes and move forward with him holding his hand, or we can go do our own thing and make the wrong choices, But back to what I was thinking, as far as a place that, do you feel a respect or like a resonance inside of you, a realization that there is some power here, Unfortunately, I was having a negative thought when we read about that, I was thinking of my old Catholic church, and a lot of my mental problems today, my anxiety, depression, that kind of thing. I think it comes from my history in that place. I think there's a lot of bad things in that place. It's a Catholic church, but strange sensations as you walk in there, Thank God I haven't been in there in probably a decade now, but do you feel good entering some places, and do you feel awful entering other places? That was my question, Do you have any examples of that? Have you visited some areas, I don't know, that make you think about that, question that? Are there some areas that are cursed and some areas that you do feel something positive at, Great example would be my old job. I just posted a video just yesterday about how I would dread going back there. I would feel awful on the approach to come back to the place, And believe it or not, that spot where that building was constructed was where my grandfather worked for 30 years. Believe it or not, that's true. There was a factory there, and there's all kinds of chemicals. It was he worked at some chemical place, some chemical factory. And I don't even think my grandfather was saved, but I inherited his storytelling abilities, I think. So you don't see this from my mom's side. I look like my mom's side, but that ability to communicate, I think, and tell a story, I think, comes from my grandfather. And here I was, working at the very spot where he worked all that time. And I just wonder sometimes if there was some curse there associated with that, maybe with him, because he didn't use his storytelling talents how he was supposed to, He used it there's all kinds of home videos of him telling stories about they're vulgar stories, you know, like bar type stories, so I won't mention them, but he was a very likable guy and charming. I guess I don't have the charm, you know, but I do have the ability to elaborate a story, I think. But I present that thought to you because we come to that, you know, the reason of the cloud, for the glory of the Lord had filled the house of God. Do you feel really good when you come to a spot? See, that was my old job. I feel like there was some demonic presence there that had entered that place, and it ruled that area. That's why I just had this evil over me all the time, and it made going to work miserable. Now I'm in this place where I don't have that sensation. I don't necessarily feel the glory of the Lord in the place, but at least I don't have this heart attack constant, you know. Praise God. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? It's interesting to think about. Obviously, this is the Lord's temple. This should be a holy place, and this should be what it's meant to be. It's meant to be a holy place of worship and praise to God. For he is good, his mercy endureth forever. But then you see the reversal of that in Ezekiel, right? Where it describes some of the abominations that are going on in the temple. And you go back to my old church, that Catholic church. What was going on in there? And then you go to my old place of work, where my grandfather worked in a different building there, but a new building is erected, and now it's like an evil presence or something, you know? It's scary stuff to think about. I stopped talking. We're going to continue from chapter 6 next time, the Sermon of Solomon. That should be excellent. This is what I was looking for. So we'll probably spend the whole time talking about chapter 6 next time. So I'm going to stop here. We'll continue from there. Thank you for listening. Have a blessed day.